Buckle up, because this week we are taking a big old whiff of the second best smell known to man. Brought to you by two visionaries of literature and screen, Stephen King and John Carpenter. It's a 1983 horror classic, Christine. So tighten your seatbelts and prepare for a wild ride. We're going deep under the hood, examining this horror masterpiece. On the surface, Christine is a horror movie about a possessed car that kills people. That's a basic one-sentence summary, but that one sentence really doesn't do this film justice. You could of course just enjoy Christine purely as that, a movie about a killer car. Or alternatively, there are many other layers here for you to enjoy, such as it taking many common tropes of the early 80s and cleverly subverting them. The beginning of the film plays out as a typical 80s teen high school drama. You have the main character played by Keith Gordon, who is a nerdy loser, and how do we know that? Well, in typical 80s style, he's wearing glasses, and he doesn't have a girlfriend or a car. But the first subversion is that he's actually not academically gifted, he's mechanically gifted and wants to take shop instead of calculus. We are, over the start of the film, introduced to the other usual suspects from these 80s teen flicks. John Stockwell as the improbable best friend Dennis, who is everything the main character isn't. Leigh Cabot, the new hot girl in town who all the boys want to get with, is Alexandra Paul, along with a motley crew of bullies who all look like they're about to hit middle age, never mind graduate high school. And they commit a lot of felonies, not just high school pranks, they do actual felonies. The opening plays out exactly how you'd expect. The girls have no interest in our protagonist, and the bullies, well, they bully him mercilessly. This is where our expectations are subverted, because usually in these kinds of movies, the nerdy teen would have some sort of glow-up. That was in fact a cruel joke, all at their expense. Whereas here, our protagonist, Arnie Cunningham, buys a 1958 Plymouth Fury from a weird old man. Quick aside here, what is it with Stephen King and weird old men? Literally everything he's ever written that I've seen or read has one. Purely by possessing this car, instantly transform Arnie into the coolest guy in school. One who gets the girl and takes no shit from anybody, not even his overbearing parents, another common trope of these types of films. Shame all of this is because Christine the car is evil, and has possessed Arnie with her all-encompassing evil spirit, and soon starts killing, or at least attempting to kill, everyone close to him. The movie can also be read as a subversion of what was, at the time, the popular nostalgia porn of the era. Yes, everyone likes to pretend that nostalgia was invented in the early aughts to sell things to millennials and Gen X. But no, amazingly, the late 70s and 80s were all nostalgic about Greasers and that general 1950s youth culture. With massively popular films and TV shows such as Happy Days, Grease and American Graffiti all having a massive hard-on for that 1950s high school youth culture of cars, girls and football. With this film cleverly subverting every single bit of that nostalgia bait in various ways. The car is of course evil and kills a bunch of people throughout the film. The girl turns out to be the one who saves the day rather than just being eye candy. And the high school jock football player who usually saves the day gets injured and can never play again without risking paralysis, and doesn't even save his friend in the end or really defeat the evil car. These subversive tropes aren't the only thing going for Christine, no. There's far more going on under the hood than just that. John Carpenter is one of my favourite directors, well, up until 1994's In the Mouth of Madness he is. After that, he's not made a single good movie. But I digress, because here he is at the very peak of his powers. The first hour of the 110-minute runtime is a masterful subversion of the aforementioned 80s teen drama tropes. The rest of the runtime is Carpenter channeling his inner Halloween and transferring those same filmmaking techniques to a killer car, with clever use of lighting, shadows and camera movement to create suspense, terror and thrills as people are stalked and chased through streets and down alleyways by a killer that just happens to be a 1958 Plymouth Fury, which, let's be honest, in the hands of a lesser director could have come across as being very cheesy and very silly. But not here, with the film feeling very reminiscent of Carpenter's earlier horror masterpiece, whilst still retaining the all-important Stephen King essence from the novel. Another Carpenter hallmark that is in full effect is the score. Similarly to Halloween, it's all synth and digital noise combining perfectly with the cinematography and direction, helping to create that sense of suspense and horror when Christine starts killing people. The performances are another highlight, with all of the main actors doing a good job of portraying their respective characters. Keith Gordon is excellent as Arnie, going from the typical 80s high school nerd to an unhinged murderous greaser over the course of the film's narrative. The star of the film, however, for me is John Stockwell as the best friend. His portrayal of the high school hunk who just never quite made it to high school superstardom brilliantly. You do get a real sense that he genuinely cares about Arnie. The rest of the cast also give decent performances, except one particular line delivery from one of the bullies. If you've ever seen this film, you'll know exactly which one I'm talking about. The delivery just seems off. Another plus point are the special effects. Although sparse, what we do get are well worth the price of admission, especially anytime Christine regenerates herself. It's pretty obvious it's a car being destroyed, with the footage reversed if you look carefully enough, but for an era without CGI it looks amazing. But by far the best effect, and probably one of the most visually pleasing scenes in the entire film, is when Christine escapes an exploding petrol station engulfed in flames. I don't know for sure, but I highly suspect some crazy stuntman had to sit in that car enveloped in flames and attempt to drive it. Dude must have balls the size of a rhino, because there's no way in hell I'd fancy even attempting that one. The result is as commensurate with the risk taken, at least. In fact, that whole petrol station scene is excellent. We get the aforementioned escape, but that is just a tiny bit of a much larger special effect and stunt set piece, with Christine's entrance being a literal front-on collision. Then a massive explosion takes place after she's run over one of the bullies. The explosion is really impressive, and I for one miss the days of real explosions destroying miniatures. Give me this all day, every day, over the fake CGI explosions we get these days. The last, but not least thing I love about this film are the themes. There's a few of them you can try and unpick if you are so inclined. There's the obvious one of obsession. Arnie becomes so entirely consumed by his new car that his last thought in life is to touch its grille. His obsession is so intense, you could argue he has a bad case of mechaphilia. He wants to fuck the car, in other words. And yes, I just had to Google what that was called. As a result, I am probably on some sort of list now, the things I do for these videos. Please subscribe. There's also the theme of social isolation, with Arnie becoming ever more isolated and extreme in his behaviour. He starts out as a nerdy loser, but at least one who has parents and at least one very close friend who cares about him. But he feels isolated and unwanted by society at large, which leads to his obsessive relationship with Christine, and ends up with him basically having nobody, as he slowly but surely pushes everyone who cares about him away for this one intense relationship. It could also be argued that it is a critique of toxic masculinity, with Arnie's drive to feel masculine and respected as a result of that driving him to do some pretty horrendous things. Basically, for a killer car movie, there are a lot of themes and social commentary going on, if that's the kind of thing that floats your boat. That's not to say, however, that this flick doesn't have some issues, because it does. Mainly the pacing. The first hour or so is the all-important setup of Arnie's transformation, but it feels both rushed and too long. Rushed, because we get a lot of time jumps within it that feel like all-important connecting scenes were cut out that could have been used to flesh out the characters and relationships more. Arnie especially seems to go from nerdy loser to absolute babe magnet with a bad attitude in between scenes. The entire raison d'etre of the first few acts is to set up the characters. He does a good job of setting up their initial character, but then seemingly just skips over the middle section of the main character's story arc, just jumping to his final form. It also feels a bit slow because we don't get any killer car action, which the second half of the movie is crammed to the rafters with, being a full throttle mess of murder. Adding to this issue is the fact that characters just come and go from the movie. At first we focus on both Arnie and Dennis, then Dennis just kind of disappears for a bit as we focus on Arnie and Lee, then everyone disappears as we focus on Christine, before we finally end up focusing on Dennis and Lee. It's all a bit disjointed and kind of done with having the pacing tightened up a little bit, maybe having Christine kill some people earlier on in the film, and get more of a focus on the major human relationship that really matters, the one between Arnie and Dennis. It doesn't ruin the film, it's just definitely something that could have been improved. Overall, Christine is a movie that is well worth watching even now. It successfully, in my opinion, subverts a number of common early 80s tropes whilst having more than a dash of Carpenter and King magic. Just a shame the pacing wasn't tightened up a little bit more, otherwise this would have been an almost perfect movie. As it is, we just have to settle for it being the best killer car movie ever made. And no, I'm not counting Rubber as a car movie, that's a killer parts car movie. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, then please like, comment and subscribe.